The Hornets revealed their latest Real Access episode, laying the foundation. What were some of our takes here on Locked On Hornets? We'll tell you in just a moment. Plus, Doug is back, baby. The team, we're back together. All coming up today. LOH.
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. And I mean us this time. I really mean it. Thanks for making us your first listen every single day. We appreciate you hopping on the Locked On Podcast Network, and you can subscribe to us anywhere you get your pods. YouTube, we mean it when we say anywhere you get your pods. There's Doug Branson, the us part of all of this. EveryHornetsBoxScore.com, also host Locked On NBA. Doug, how's it feel to be back? Did you go find any Hellbender salamanders?
No, did not get any salamanders. It was a great trip, a good recharge. Happy to be back and talking about Hornets basketball. Let's do who wore it best. That's what I'm excited about.
I was thinking
we're
about
wearing
this
it best
last
right
night.
now. I swear we don't coordinate. We don't talk about this. I spent a week away, and yet I come back first day. You and I are in the same color palette again.
Yeah, we are in the same color palette again. It does happen. I think we wore pink a couple of times in a row because I guess on those days we were a pink. Word to Mean Girls. I'm Walker Mail. Listen to me on WFNZ every weekday. Weston Walker every weekday again, 12 to 3 p.m. Sports Radio 92.7 FM. All right, we got Real Access to talk about. The Hornets revealed this. I guess it's the first episode of the offseason. It's almost an ongoing series. I'm not sure when there's a new season, when the first season ends and the second season begins. Was this the launch of season 2? Laying the Hornets episode 2 of Real Access, laying the foundation. I think that's in a world where Kon Knueppel is the 4th overall pick and you draft a Kalkbrenner. That was the laying of the foundation episode. I was wondering whether they would focus a little more on free agency too, or if it would just strictly be draft, how much of it would just strictly be focused on Kon Knueppel. And it was a draft episode. We got to see Kon Knueppel, Kalkbrenner, Sion James, Liam McNeeley, all drafted. We got to see the pre-draft process as well. We got to see the phone call. Shout out to Steve Clifford. I'll send it to you, Doug. What were some of your thoughts before we really start to digest this thing in front of the listeners here on YouTube?
Listen, I thought it was a great sales job. It was really polished. It was in wide screen. The music was great. I mean, look, this was a package that they're putting together, trying to sell fans on the idea that the people that have their hands on the steering wheel know what they're doing. And I think if you listen to this show a lot, I think you would take away from this show that we think that they do generally have a good idea of what they're doing. They have a plan. They're trying to execute it. It may not be going as quickly as some people would like, but I think that's part of the sales job here is that they are, I mean, even in the description, it says there's no skipping steps. We're continuing to lay the foundation. But I love that they did work in there that like there will come a day soon where they're going to make that big move. And I think it was very interesting that you had that little nugget, I think, so close at the top, because I think they are hearing, whether it be from season ticket holders or they're watching media, they are hearing the thing of like, well, this team has not won in a very long time. When are they going to win?
It came across very online and not only you said they found a way to work it in. They mentioned it at the top. No. Not only did they put it in there at the top of the episode, they put it in the trailer. The first minute, they put that quote from Jeff Peterson. In fact, they put that quote in the trailer. I was able to talk about it in my last solo episode. I said, Jeff Peterson talks poker. He discusses when it's time to push all of the chips in. Not now. Building great things, it does take time, which you could roll your eyes a lot here. Thus, the do something mantra that we've had surrounding us for the podcast, really entire history. But he's not wrong with this regime. It is Jeff Peterson's second draft. We do really like what Jeff Peterson was able to accomplish with this draft, but he is acknowledging he is incredibly online, or ownership is, with Terrence Oglesby's report about the Schlotkin, not necessarily being okay with the losing as much anymore. They're ready to ramp it up. It feels like that with the messaging coming across at the very beginning of this Real Access episode. Yeah, they put it in the trailer. They wanted you to know this is how we're starting things off.
Yeah, the problem with the speed of things and like laying the foundation, of course, all of it sounds great, but it's like you've been living under a bad landlord and the pipes have been leaking, the house is falling apart. You know, the wallpaper is coming down. There's just holes everywhere. And then all of a sudden, someone else comes along and takes over the property and says, look, you've got to move out for a little while. You got to go. I don't know where you're going to live, but you got to move out for a little while. And we're going to build you a beautiful new mansion. You get a mansion, but I don't know how long it's going to take. And so you're like, yes, but I don't have anywhere to live. I didn't like where I lived before. It was not very good. But how long is this project going to take? I need somewhere to live. And so, I think that's where people are. But I thought this was a good sales job.
I don't even need a mansion right away. I'll take a nice upgraded ranch-style home for a fair market price. I'll take that. Upgraded for sure. Reno, but
just go to all the stuff comes from Lowe's. I don't need like luxury. Just right. Go to Home Depot.
Like Lowe's.
Just give me the sink that I saw in the ad. I'm fine with that. Zach Lowe hates these videos, by the way. He hates these types of videos. I know you love Zach Lowe. He's very, I think you mentioned it on his show. He was talking about the Phoenix Suns version of this, but these types of videos where teams release behind the scenes looks at their draft process, but it's really not behind the scenes. They don't let you in. It's tailored. It's manufactured. Everything's blurred. You really don't learn anything. I would just say, and I don't know if you agree with this or not, the Hornets, it's definitely that. There's a lot of that. But I thought whether it's hearing Liam McNeeley's voice when he was doing his team interview, or it was the general manager or president of basketball operations, whatever you want to call it, Jeff Peterson.
Yeah, it was EVP, and then there was the promotion. Whatever, yeah.
But having him say we are going to put all of our chips into the middle of the table at some point, like there were just a few more little nuggets that I thought made this one a little bit more substantial than the types of videos that Zach Lowe hates.
Oh, and the very specific type that they released draft time last year. That was my biggest complaint, and the fact that you bring it up allows me to discuss my biggest takeaway is that it was I shouldn't say it was very different, because it was similar in that we got to learn a lot about the first round pick. I did like last year's Real Access episode for us being introduced to Tijan Salon. We got to learn a lot more about him, and that, I guess, 20-minute snippet with his personality, with them working him out. I thought that was cool. Same thing with Kon. The fact that you got the workout, I took real value from that. I think that's something the fans are hungry for, and you gave it to them. That was really cool, and we got some interesting comments. It did feel like Charles Lee and Jeff Peterson had their guy. I think in all of this, if you apply, 1 second, because I know where you're going, and you're right, but just hold on 1 second.
All right.
If you apply what everybody starts to understand as they put the puzzle pieces together. And what the puzzle pieces together they're putting is VJ Edgecombe going to Philly. So once you start to realize that VJ Edgecombe is going to go to Philadelphia and Ace Bailey isn't going to go to Philadelphia, and now I have to decide between Ace and Kon Knueppel, it felt like after Kon Knueppel worked out for the Hornets, and it was his first one, he revealed that, by the way, might have been his only one, but it was definitely his first one. Once they had that all figured out, then it felt like they were foreshadowing Kon. So now go ahead with your I'm not having their guy spiel here.
Well, I think that if VJ Edgecombe was available, they would have taken VJ Edgecombe.
Agreed.
I don't watch this video and come away with it thinking, oh, no, they had zeroed in on Kon and they would have taken Kon. I still believe that they were interested in moving down. Once VJ was off the board, they were interested in moving down for Kon Knueppel, but then got nervous because they liked Kon so much in that workout that they were like, we can't move down and risk losing this guy. Because I thought the key word in this was Jeff Peterson saying he felt relieved after Kon's workout. And then I think he then caught himself and then he said something to the effect of like, the whatever word that you would use to say, no, he was our guy. We like concentrated on him or whatever. But I thought he felt relieved was interesting because I think they went into that workout going, VJ's probably off the board. Like, what are we going to do here? And then Kon comes in and does that workout, and they're like, okay, whew.
Yeah.
Like, whatever happens, either we take Kon at 4, or we try to work something out. We've got a guy. We've got a guy. That's what I'm thinking. The takeaway for me is not that they got their guy, absolutely exactly the player that they wanted, but they got a guy that made sense to what they were trying to build as a program.
No, 100%. Yeah, and maybe so. I guess the only fine tuning I would do that to articulate how I feel about it is they got their guy once they were done with the workout and they knew VJ Edgecombe wasn't going to be there, and then it did feel like Kon was their guy, and that's when we got almost the assurance that he was going to be the selection. And the reports were out there. This was a poorly kept secret that the Hornets really loved Kon. And then after the reports were all out there, we had that for a few weeks. Then we started to see a couple of reports. Well, hey, we don't know if this is all smoke. Now that is the perfect example of, ooh, we may have tipped our hand just a little bit. Let's put out some smoke reports. Let's do that real quickly. And we didn't buy it. As soon as that stuff came out, I was like, nah, man, no way in hell. You guys love him. You love him. K-I-S-S-I-N-G. Sitting in a tree. Kon and the Hornets, baby. Yeah, no doubt. And that's what it felt like. All right, I talked about having the main takeaway, and then I never gave it.
I have so many more thoughts. I love this type of stuff.
Let's do it. All right, coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast. More real thoughts on real access coming up in just a moment. LaMelo also makes an appearance in this episode, and the Hornets, they lose a coach. We'll get Doug's thoughts on Chris Gent leaving the Hornets for the New York Knicks. That's all still to come. LOH. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time? It's nice to hear that echoed in the atmosphere again. We've all been there, logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Game Time comes in. Game Time makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever, and prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime. You can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. I mean, this month was an absolute banger for hip-hop. Freddie Gibbs, Jid just released his new album. You had the Clips with one of the greatest album rollouts of all time. They're all announcing their tours. Go to Game Time, folks. If you want Freddie Gibbs tickets, they're in Atlanta. I think Freddie's going to Raleigh, too, for all you sickos in state lines. Anyways, just go to Game Time and check out some of those concert tickets. With Game Time, the price you see is the price you pay. No hidden fees. Worried about what happens if plans change? The Game Time guarantee has your back with cancellation protection and more. Take the guesswork out of buying concert and showtime tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA. Locked On NBA for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. More Locked On Hornets ahead. You mentioned Zach Lowe hates these types of videos. Some of the footage that the Hornets revealed in Real Access with the Hornets in the draft room. And I 100% agree. It's manufactured, if not totally false. It's not a lie, but it is manufactured. Yet I applied that take way more so to last year's draft Real Access episode. And I had those comments, I believe, then. I'm sure we could go dig that up if we cared enough to go in the archives and have my thoughts a year ago. But when they went to Jeff Peterson and Jeff went down the list of all of the opportunities that could present themselves on draft night, he gave you an evaluation of every single player that was in consideration at 6th overall. That's where I'm calling, okay, buddy. Like, this is where you're not having these conversations the way you're having them in front of the camera in the draft room. That's where it feels put on. That's where it does feel tailored for something to watch. That's when it feels tailored to me. And I'm not exactly sure you feel that way about Donovan Clingan. You didn't take him, but I'm calling cap on you feeling that way about Donovan Clingan, Mr. Jeff Peterson. Same stuff with some of the other prospects that were also available. And you hear things, right? Like I do think the Hornets really wanted Stephon Castle
Yes.
pretty badly last year.
Yes.
They wanted Stephon. So I'm not even blaming Jeff for this. I'm not blaming Jeff for saying for not saying, well, we really wanted Stephon, but oh well, I guess we'll settle for Tijon Salon in a weak draft. No, you can't say that. I would be criticizing you if you did. So I'm not blaming him for it. It's just I understand where Zach is coming from. I had those types of complaints a lot more for last year's draft episode than I did this year's.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I thought we got a lot of good nuggets. You had Jeff Peterson. You had what I mentioned before. You get the behind-the-scenes look at the job interview. Now, I don't know how interesting that is to people because that's what these essentially are job interviews, whether they're workouts or meetings. But you did hear some of those in this video. And then you had Jeff Peterson at one of the workouts going up to Kon Knueppel and essentially being like, hey, are you taken care of? Do you need anything? What's going on? And I don't know if Mitch Kupchak did that or not. I don't know if Rich Cho did that or not because they didn't do these types of videos. But I do know that Jeff Peterson seems like the kind of guy you would like to play for, be in an organization with. Like if Jeff Peterson is the guy that you're meeting first up in a workout, I mean, you're going to get, Charles Lee, who is ultra energy, huge smile, big positivity, seems like the kind of guy you'd want to work with too. But if Jeff Peterson's the guy that you're meeting first and you're going, hey, I'm going to judge the first impression of the organization based on my meeting with this guy, that's a pretty positive thing that he's putting out there. And I think that's great for the Hornets in terms of acquiring talent in the future.
Well, and they're all there, I mean, we saw the Schlotkin in the background of the workout with Kon. We saw him in the draft room. And when we watch Panthers Blueprint and we see Panthers owner David Tepper everywhere. Not only is he in the draft room, which is a lot bigger just because NFL staffs are a lot bigger, but Tepper is right next. So if I'm not mistaken, it's Dan Morgan, the GM of the Panthers, and then next to him on one side is David Tepper, and then after David Tepper, it's Dave Canales, which is funny just because you would think maybe it's Dave Canales, the head coach, right next to Dan Morgan, the GM. But no, it's the owner of the franchise. And so here is the Schlotkin in the workout and also in the draft room. Thoughts on ownership being as present as they were, or is that just kind of standard when guys buy teams? It's because they like sports or want to see what their product's all about, and they're going to be in on the behind-the-scenes access stuff.
Hey, man, if I paid that much money, yeah, you bet your bippy I would be in that room. Now, how much are they influencing the decision-making? That's always the question. It's not if they're in the room or not.
Right.
I think they were across the table. And to me, what we saw in this video, now who knows what was actually going on, but what they would like us to know or like us to believe is that they played an advisory role, an alignment role, hey, we're just making sure that everyone is on the same page, which is what you would want your top of the CEO to be involved in. You would want to make sure that everyone is marching in the same direction. That's leadership. That you don't want them getting into the minutia and over managing and saying, well, I did this research on this guy and I think we should really look at this guy. I don't know. That's where you get into the Jerry Jonesification of things and you go, okay, well, this might be not what we want. So I didn't see any of that. I didn't hear any of that. I've never really been too worried about that.
Yeah. And you wouldn't see anything or hear anything about that via the episode. And to your point even more, though, like outside of the frame of the episode, we don't hear or see any of that in real time. The one link you could possibly make is the Duke connection. And fair. When you draft Kon and you draft Sion and Rick Schnall is in love with Duke. And remember when Jake Fisher talked about who the next GM of the Hornets was going to be, he talked about the Duke connection and how we were like, all right, is it Trajan Langdon? Oh my God, is Elton Brand? Please don't be Danny Ferry. The whole Duke stuff, that seems to have a real place within the Hornets org, but we like the picks for what they were. We like Kon.
Duke, they have a lot of good basketball players. Like it's not
right.
like, yeah, I don't know. It's not 100%. San Diego State or something. I don't know if they're good at college basketball.
It's not like it's not like they're bringing back Mason Plumlee again. So like it's not. I think it's a little overblown. Oh wait, they did.
Oh
anyways.
man.
Yeah. Let's go
One
after
other
Marshall.
thing before we move on to this Chris Gent thing. LaMelo shows up. That's cool. He was showing love. They made a point. I think it was Charles who was saying, "Hey man, you showing up matters." That's a beautiful thing. That's all positivity. That's all love. And then my final thing is Steve Clifford, twice former head coach of the Charlotte Hornets, now in an senior advisory role in his draft dungeon, looking at tape all day. They give him the phone. They give him the opportunity to call in the pick, which is beautiful if you remember what Steve Clifford said prior to taking on this role. He seemed vulnerable. He seemed nervous about a career change this late in his life. And it's so real, and it's so human, and it's so beautiful. And then to see this moment where he gets to call in the pick, it's like, hey man, you did work, and now you get this milestone, this moment. And do you remember the exact words? He said, "Your legacy lives on." I'll try to get the exact wordage.
Yes, I think you're right. Because I thought that was interesting as well. But yes, I think that's correct.
Which again, if you're a sicko and you've been hanging on for a long time through both of the Steve Clifford administrations, how many times did we really feel bad for this man who we knew was a good coach, who had been assistant coaches to great coaches, who had been an assistant coach with great players? He knew what superstars looked like. He knew what Dwight Howard looked like. He knew what Tracy McGrady looked like. He knew what you needed to win basketball games. And he was cursed with being a part of this Hornets Bobcats organization that refused to go out and find that type of player or draft that kind of player. Even when he seemingly loved Donovan Mitchell or a particular player, they would always go in another direction. So I just love this like full circle moment, which is like your legacy lives on, and we're probably taking the guy that you actually wanted us to take. Sorry, you're not head coach anymore, but we're finally doing the thing that they should have done years ago, which is listen to you.
All right, I got three things here. I like to list things. I noticed that about myself. I like to list the points that I have. One,
list radio.
Rank radio is just phenomenal. It's in my blood. Number one, in terms of takes or reputations that either age like milk or wine, I think Steve Clifford, his age is like wine. I think in the moment, you're not going to like it as much as you're going to like it when you look back on it in 5 years, especially with all of the draft opinions. He was in on Brandon Miller. He was in on Donovan Mitchell. And he's in on Tijon. That's remained to be seen. But you're allowed misses. Nobody's perfect. But that's
I think you like Devin Booker too, which I have my feelings about Devin Booker, but he's obviously a star in this league.
Yeah, sure. And that was the Frank Kaminsky draft. So clearly, pretty good there. The second thing is when Steve Clifford, you mentioned he was vulnerable, not knowing what his role was going to be. He really didn't have an answer. You're totally right about that. And Steve took a lot of questions. The moment that it was announced that he was going to step down at the end of the year. So he answered questions twice about his stepping down. I think it was when it happened with like a month and a half to go in the season, something like that. And then it was at the end of the season. One thing he did say, though, was that he was really interested in the draft. He said that like 3 to a handful of times. He was all in on this, and he was really excited about it. So happy for him. The third thing is, Doug, I think those guys listen to Steve when it comes to the draft. I think he has some weight that he can throw around, and I think he does so in a way that is accepted by Jeff Peterson and company. And honestly, if those are your draft opinions in the past, and the Donovan Mitchell stuff, just for clarity's sake, that's real. That is confirmed. Steve Clifford wanted Donovan Mitchell in that draft. It's not like rumors or anything. That's real. Let him throw his weight around a little bit.
That's not a Steve Clifford weight joke. That's just like
I'm sorry, Steve.
No, that's not what that was. Well, I'm just saying that's not what that was. That was hey, let Steve throw his weight around because he knows what he's talking about, and no one would listen. I think the most interesting things that he would say when he was in front of the media and as a coach is like what it takes to become a great player. It takes getting better every day. In fact, if you go back and listen to interviews that he had while he was head coach, before Jeff Peterson got here, before Charles Lee, before the Schlotkin, he was saying a lot of things, and in his first stint as head coach, setting up a lot of things that sound a lot like Hornets DNA. He never said the words Hornets DNA, but he said all of those things that really make up what Peterson and Charles Lee and the Schlotkin have determined what Hornets DNA is. And he convinced Kemba Walker, hey, you can be a certain type of player if you don't change, or if we do these couple of things, you can be a great player. And so he just understands like what it takes to get to that next level. And so that to me is so important in identifying talent. And now he's finally in a position with people that are prepared to listen to him.
I've always loved that quote in the Zach Lowe article on Kemba. Just speaking of Zach Lowe again, but it was on Kemba. It was a real ESPN national storyline when he was like the hottest player in the league for 2 weeks or whatever, going for 50 and whatnot, going for 60 in that Philly game. The quote from Clifford when Kemba Walker walked into his office and said, I just can't do it. I can't change my form anymore. It's going terribly. I'm just going to go back to the old way. And Steve said, okay, that's fine. And you'll never be an all-star point guard, but you can do that if you want.
That's a great dad. By the way, great dad move. I'll just tell you that right now. You want to color on that wall? That's fine. I mean, if you don't love popsicles later, you don't want a popsicle. That's fine. It's totally fine. No, color all day long. I'll eat the popsicles.
I love them. I love them. All right, coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
You put it on them.
Bees everywhere.
Is becoming older realizing that good parenting is basically gaslighting? Is that
it's bargaining. I always compare it to it's the negotiator and the person is in the bank with the bomb strapped to their chest, and you dadding or parenting in general is hostage negotiation.
Just kidding. Let's all think clearly. I'll do it, Dad. Give me the popsicle. Let's just calm down. Dad lighting. Exactly. It's a real thing. Try it out there, fathers. One more segment to go. The Hornets, they did lose their top assistant. Even if he wasn't their top assistant, he's about to be the top assistant with New York. What does that mean? We'll talk about it coming up next. LOH. Touched on it a little bit while you were gone, Doug, but the news, it became official. Chris Gent, the assistant coach for the Hornets and the head coach for the Hornets Summer League title team. Yeah, Chris Gent, who showed a lot of good things as a head coach, I thought was awesome in front of the camera. I thought there was some sets that were like you could see on the sideline. The players respected him. The sideline out of bounds plays, I think you could see some nice drops there from Chris. And he is gone now after having worked with Mike Brown a couple of stints in Cleveland, if I'm not mistaken. I know, or once in Cleveland. I went through all of this a couple of episodes ago. But Chris Gent is now going to be the lead assistant alongside Mike Brown up in New York as Coach Brown now takes that job. Your thoughts on Chris Gent, always in our hearts as being the head coach of our lone Summer League title team. Your thoughts on him being gone?
Yeah, listen, this is just what happens when you win championships, folks. You lose top assistants. Happened to the Patriots so many times during their dynasty run in the NFL. Is going to happen to the Celtics. In fact, the Hornets are beneficiaries of that kind of thing. They steal Charles Lee away, and the Celtics lose him, and then they're going to lose some ball games now without Charles Lee. So this happens. You lose assistant coaches and you pay $50 for T-shirts, folks. That's what happens when you win championships.
Buddy.
Them's the breaks.
Hold me back. I went on my rant. I've only made $50 T-shirt jokes 150 times since I had
my only take is like, what did you expect? This team is owned by hedge fund managers. Like, of course they are going to squeeze every penny out of you once they win. Just get ready. Just loosen your wallets. You need to have a talk with your wallet right now, because if the Hornets start winning, they're gonna hammer you.
I said this to the listeners there on my solo rant. I was like, I'll be naive. I guess that's what I was. I'll be that. I went in the not thinking it was. I can't do the rant again. I can't.
You think the Schlotkin is socialist? No, this is highly capital. It might be post-capitalism.
Yeah, it was highly capitalist is correct. It's saturated, as I said, in capitalism is the Charlotte Hornets, the Schlotkin. Anyways, back to Chris Gent leaving us. Look, we won't have to pay $50 for T-shirts anymore because of Chris Gent's winning. I hope that we have that opportunity for Charles Lee's winning. But is it real? Because in the NFL, when you lose an offensive or defensive coordinator, you feel that loss. Like those are real losses. You get scared. Fan bases, intelligent fan bases, they fear losing a great play caller offensively or defensively because they matter so much. What do you think the effect is of losing a respected enough guy like Chris Gent on a basketball staff as compared to a football staff?
It's weird, man. I feel like coaching staffs are moving in the NBA, are moving in that direction of having an offensive coordinator and a defensive coordinator. They're kind of starting to adopt that language a little bit. In fact, people are talking about Chris Gent as associate head coach moving to the Knicks to be Mike Brown's offensive coordinator. I think it's important when you have a head coach that is defensively minded that you find somebody that can be a little bit of an offensive voice, or vice versa if you have an offensively minded coach. So Charles Lee, a little bit of a question mark to me. I mean, I think it's easy to go, hey, he's a defense coach, but I think there's still a little bit of a question mark about how this is all going to shake out. I think it matters more if Chris Gent were like 1v1 with a particular developing player. I think that's where it can hurt you most. If like Tijon or Brandon like really loved Chris Gent, and it's like, all right, you've got to like refine that voice on the staff, get that guy a new coach. So I don't know necessarily if Chris Gent was 1v1 with one of these players. So that's where it could hurt. But I think offensively, the Hornets are going to be dominated by LaMelo's creativity. I think if this was going to hurt a team more, it would be a team that was a system team like, for example, the Indiana Pacers. That's not the Hornets. The Hornets are going to play more jazz than some of these other teams because you've got LaMelo Ball at point guard. So I would not be as concerned with losing Chris Gent. My curiosity is, do they, I saw Kemba Walker in a practice uniform in that video, the Real Access video, going 1v1 with Kon Knueppel, beating Kon Knueppel 1v1, making Kon Knueppel mad. Is Kemba Walker ready to move in from like player enhancement coach? Are they ready for Kemba Walker to move to a more like official assistant coach role? That could be interesting. And then where does this put Longstaff, who has been also rumored to be looking at or to be considered for other jobs, and Lamar Skeeter, who I think we initially thought was sort of the number 2 guy, Skeeter.
By the way, not only that, but here, so we have Chris Gent in the news for Summer League title, moving on to the Knicks. Here you mentioned Longstaff being highly thought of. And now there's a clip from Greensboro Swarm head coach DJ Baker talking about the importance of players knowing how to set screens properly and understanding screening angles. And it took off in basketball Twitter. It took off with basketball nerd Twitter. But I think the point I'm bringing up is, do we have respect? A little R-E-S-P-E-C-T? A little Aretha Franklin singing? Do I hear that beautiful, sweet voice? It feels like we have a little of that.
You want to be desired. And also, look, Chris Gent had the full Hornets experience, Hornets DNA experience, and I think the one of the benefits to having these coaches go and take these positions is that they will evangelize your organization. The Hornets have a job to do as an organization, which is to repair the reputation of this franchise, to convince other organizations, to convince players that this isn't the same Hornets. When you have Chris Gent in New York, there might be a guy towards the end of next season who's going to be looking for a new place to play. And, maybe the Hornets go and talk to him. And then he goes and talks to Chris Gent, says, hey, Chris, I know you were with the Hornets organization. What's going on over there? I think Chris Gent's probably going to say, they know what they're doing. Like, if you're looking for a place to play, that wouldn't be a bad thing. And so all of this matters. It all matters.
Yeah. All right. That'll do it for Locked On Hornets. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free. We're available anywhere you get your pods. That includes YouTube. I want to get to 10K. I just want to see 5 digits. Help us out, man. Subscribe to our YouTube page so we can get to 10,000 subscribers. Do all the stuff your favorite YouTuber tells you to do, all that other stuff, but really, really subscribe. Doug Branson, everyhornetsboxscore.com. Also Locked On NBA. Subscribe to both of those outlets as well. I'm Walker Mail. Listen to me, WFNZ, every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. we're back. And it's still only 3 days a week, but at least both of us, we're back. We try to finish Who Wore It Best. I don't know if we're going to, but it feels like this is the off season where that might get done. Anyways, we'll keep in touch, folks, and stick with us, and we'll finish Who Wore It Best and give you more Hornets content.
And make a YouTube account and subscribe. Make another YouTube account. Make 7 YouTube accounts.
Do all of that. Listen to Doug.